From Hanselminutes.com, it's Hansel Minutes, a weekly discussion with web developer and technologist Scott Hanselman, hosted by Carl Franklin. This is Lawrence Ryan announcing show number 157, recorded live Thursday, April 9th, 2009. Support for Hansel Minutes is provided by Telerik RAD Controls, the most comprehensive suite of components for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications. Online at www.telerik.com. And by .NET Developers Journal, the world's leading .NET developer magazine. Online at www.sys-con.com. In this episode of Hansel Minutia, Scott talks with Richard Campbell.
Hi, this is Scott Hanselman, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. And this week, it's Hansel Minutia. And who else to bring on the show for Hansel Minutia but our very own Richard Campbell. Hey, sir, how's it going?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, you're on vacation or on the road or running around somewhere right now?
I'm at work. I did some meetings in Boston, and then I popped down to New London, and you called and said, hey, can we do a Minutia show? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm going to be at Pop Studios anyway.
Fantastic.
So I'm actually at the studio. No Carl around. He's off doing errands. I got the place to myself, which is challenging because there's lots and lots of equipment here and no labels on anything.
Just knobs and buttons, and everything is just black, and there's no way to know what anything does.
That's right. They all go to 11, but
yes,
they don't actually say anything.
That's a Carl Franklin security system right there.
Yes, this is sound recording through obscurity.
So one of the great things about the Minutia shows is that they have no agenda, and most people are just going to find their time completely wasted, which is a challenge considering that the whole point of this show is to not waste your time.
Yes.
So it's a certain kind of a balance that we have to...
And I'm glad that when you think about wasting time, you think of me.
I do. I say to myself, what Canadian could I call that would best waste my listeners' time? So go ahead.
No, you go if you got something.
Oh, see? So let me see what's going on. I'm building a garden. I'm building an arcade machine in the garage. I'm dedicating my life to being handy.
Oh, and I caught your Twitter where you said that buying lumber was the most incompetent you've ever felt.
Yeah, I was really having trouble with it, frankly. I went in and I kind of like prepared the speech. It was almost like when you go to a foreign country and you prepare your opening speech in like Spanish or whatever. You know, I was in Morocco and I planned my first 3 sentences in French, right? Just so I could make them appreciate that I appreciate them. I did the same thing at the lumberyard. I prepared my initial lumberyard speech. So that they would appreciate, this kind of little cultural anthropology here, that the lumberyard people would understand that I was one of them and not fear me. And I just went in and I said, yeah, I'm going to need a couple of 2x4s, brush treated, and a couple of 2x10s, but I'm going to be cutting, And I, somewhere in there, I made a mistake, or maybe my accent was wrong or something, but they knew that I was not. It was almost like, hey, I have some 2x4s and 2x10s, get a couple, and you're a computer person, aren't you? Damn it! How did you know? What was it? Was it posture? Was it the unblogging this T-shirt? What did I do? What did I do wrong to give me away? So anyway, then they started talking to me like I was a kindergartner. Well, a 4x4 is not really 4 inches by 4 inches. Oh, wait, pressure treating does not involve arsenic and hasn't for the last 15 years. Oh, where did you learn about all this? Well, Google, so. Yes. So then it's even worse when they start loading the lumber into my minivan, which in that was also kind of an embarrassing thing, right? I literally moved the emergency diaper kit aside so that I could get my 2x10s in there. So feeling good about that. And then I had to buy a saw. That's a very emasculating experience. I bought a handsaw. Everyone at the lumberyard assumes that you have some kind of a what are those things called? The circular saws that cut people's fingers off?
Yeah, a circular saw.
Circular saw, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Everyone assumes you have a complete, like you've dedicated one entire garage to woodworking.
Yes, you must have that.
After we buy all this, I'm like, can I buy a saw? Which was a problem because,
it's not that
simple. That also
simple.
gave it away.
Yeah, very clear signs. You are not a professional wood
Are you handy?
anything. No, I'm really good at calling professionals though.
So you just pay you throw money at the problem.
I figure this, people pay me to make computer systems work well. While I'm doing that, I'm making enough money to pay the guy to paint the fence. There's an irony in this because I'm all about outsourcing, right? I'm the first guy to say, dude,
hire DBA. Dude, hire a designer. Please, let someone else host this.
Yeah,
Stop
let the professionals
hosting your own website at your house.
Yeah, let the professionals do their jobs.
But I can't do that because it's a manly thing to chop down trees and cut wood and build things, and I need to be involved in that.
You need to do that yourself, right? Because I don't know if you know, but I'm at the final 6 weeks of a 1-year renovation of my house.
Really?
Yes.
Are you doing this yourself?
No, I've been hiring professionals for a year.
Wow.
But my wife and I did the design. We spent almost a year on the design before we got started, and we basically took the whole main floor off the house. We left the server closet intact, so
nice.
don't worry, it's okay. The office survived the whole thing, but we rebuilt the whole main floor, and we added another floor.
And you're the general contractor in this context?
Actually, Stacy is my wife is.
Ah.
Because remember, she's a professional project manager on the garment industry. So there was a point where we had the architect, the general contractor, and both of us in the room. And I said, we have entirely too many project managers here. Mm-hmm. At least two of us have to step back. And in that case, it was the architect and me.
Wow. So you have a server room in your house.
Yep.
Now, I have a wiring closet. Now, what is the difference between a wiring closet and a server room? Is it just square footage?
I think that's part of it. Well, I have a rack that has all the wiring on it. That's one 30U rack. And then I have a separate 30U rack that has the servers on it.
You have a rack in your house.
2 of them.
That's pretty badass, I have to say.
And I put little racks built into the desks as well, so the workstations roll out on rails and you can service them too.
You're my hero.
I'm here to serve, man. And did I point out that all the machines in the office are water cooled?
Now, you are a water cooling man. You said this to me before.
Yes.
Because I've got my big quad power machine, and I think if I remember correctly, you told me that I wasn't pushing it far enough from an overclocking perspective. And you said water cooling was the way. And I said running tubes of water through electrical boxes was a mistake. Well, but you are a huge water cooling person.
I find it deeply rewarding to pour water into my PCs and have it be a good thing. It just feels good. But the funny thing is I'm not an overclocker, right? I don't worry about overclocking. I think the machines have enough performance. I'm trying to get rid of noise. So
really?
The whole thing with when you walk into my office, there's 16 PCs in my office. There is not a sound. Right? The room is almost entirely silent.
Really?
Yeah.
That is amazing. Because I've got 6 PCs and it's like being on an airplane all the time.
Well, that's the thing is what I did was eliminate every single fan from the office. All the fans are in the server closet, and the server closet is soundproof and air conditioned and so forth.
Huh. And was it worth the effort? I mean, the hours you pour into that, you get those hours back just with blissful silence?
Absolutely. And remember, I share my office with my wife. It's a 2-station office, so...
2-station office?
Yeah, we're side by side.
But doesn't that make it difficult for you to just screw around and not get any work done?
No, because the screens wrap all the way around me, so there are a couple of screens she can't see.
Now, how many screens do you have?
I use 3 on the development machine and 1 on the secondary machine, and then I have the laptop as well. I've
got 4 monitors, and I'm going to have to give up one of them. I'm building that MAME machine. I'm building an arcade cabinet.
Right.
Let me rephrase. John Batdorf and I have bought a old cabinet. We are gutting it and putting a PC in it. Because I don't want to just play arcade games. I also want to be able to play Doom on this thing.
Yes.
I know everyone's like, oh, look, I can play Donkey Kong. It only cost me $3,000 and took 4 weeks. I'm overpowering this thing. I want to be able to play Far Cry, but standing up. So I'm going to put an LCD in it, even though the arcade purists are telling me to put a 27-inch, arcade monitor, 300-pound CRT. So this is going to mean sacrificing one of my beloved 4x3 LCDs from my 4-monitor setup.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here looking at my 4 monitors. I've got, going left to right, I've got Web Pages, Outlook, TweetDeck, Zune. And it's like trying to pick a child, It's like Solomon. Which of these kids do I not love that much? Is it the TweetDeck? Is it the Zune? I don't know. Well, and I can't buy a 4x3 LCD anymore.
No, you just can't. They're all going to be 16:9 now. And I'm amazed at how quickly TweetDeck owns screen real estate. I've never seen an app better, other than Visual Studio. There's no app that gets better the bigger you get, more than TweetDeck. It makes
me feel like a trader, not a trader, TRAI, but a trader like someone on Wall Street.
Right.
Why would someone need more monitors? I'm like, well, gosh, if I could dedicate an extra 3 monitors across the top to TweetDeck, the river of news, I don't remember dedicating a monitor PointCast. Remember PointCast?
Yeah, I remember PointCast, but that was you needed to save like 100 pixels by 800 pixels for PointCast. You didn't need much for that. But TweetDeck, it's all the different searches you've got running. And you cannot have too much screen space on TweetDeck.
I'm telling you, taking one of these monitors and getting rid of it is going to be a problem. And I'm seeing people online that are saying, gosh, you want a 20-inch LCD 4x3? Can't buy one. Buy a 24-inch 16x9 and then just cover the sides with paper.
I like it.
That is the arcade solution for that. Black cardboard to make it. And then that's the equivalent of a 20-inch screen.
Yeah. No, I think you should go get one of those 24-inch 1920 by 1200s. It's time to come to the 16x9 world, Scott. It's time.
It is, well, I appreciate 16x9 from a information perspective, but I guess I'm just going to have to replace it with another 24, because 4 monitors, man. Once you live the multi-mon life, you just can't possibly give it up. Yeah,
my triple screen rig is the 30-inch in the center, and then two 20-inch 16x12s hung in portrait mode. And I've just found that 1600 pixels high is incredibly useful.
Really?
Yeah.
Portrait mode.
So, well, the two side screens are, because the center screen is the 2560 by 1600. So the whole thing was, how many screens can I get going 1600 high? And so hanging those 20s in portrait mode, they made them the same height as the 30-inch.
Well, now that's interesting. Now you got me wondering. So I've got a 24-inch, which is the 24-inch Dell from 2 years ago. I love the way that Dell does their numbering. It's a 2407. So it was made in 2007, and it's 24 inches.
Right.
I just think that's finally numbering that makes sense to me.
You're totally sensible.
So this is 1920 by 1200. See, I'm trying to figure out which of my other monitors. I've got a bunch of basically 1200 tall appears to be my thing.
Right.
I've got to figure out. So you're saying I would get a 16 by 9 that was at least that wide, and then flip it over, and I could put documents and stuff over there.
Yeah, you could do, setting up a 1920 by 1200 in portrait would be interesting, because the height is awesome on that.
That's interesting. I think that's what I'll have to do. I'll remove the TweetDeck one, and I'll have to switch my 16 by 9 and flip it over. Now, doesn't when you flip something over like that, you go from having RGB left to right pixels to RGB top to bottom, which makes ClearType rendering a little wonky.
Yes. No
two ways about it.
I haven't found a problem with it, actually. With the last the machine that I built like that, it was able to tolerate it quite well. Mm-hmm. There is a difference between the screens when you drag across them, but it's not horrible, because plus the triple approach, you have the center screen is much bigger than the wings.
Yeah.
So the center screen is your focus of work. That's what Studio owns, and then the wings are supporting information, right? They are documentation. They're invariably some kind of search going on. They're a running dialogue, something like that.
Yeah. Huh.
It's just a way of orienting yourself. But of course, now there's folks that do another row of screens above the main row.
Yeah.
Which I think is another level of insanity entirely. I haven't gone there yet. And I do say yet.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Without a doubt. Hey, talk to me about MVC, because I saw your blog post about MVC shipping.
Yeah, the guys, Phil and Scott Gu and the various and sundry people, really worked hard to get it released as open source. And so far it's been very positive, although we did see a very interesting comment in a what do you call it, a Dead Tree magazine in, Redmond Developer News. Stephen Forte, a friend of yours and mine, said that he was concerned that what happens if people start forking MVC. He didn't think that was a good thing. So he was actually concerned we were releasing the source because people might make their own versions. And that he wouldn't, he would be overwhelmed by that, I guess.
Well, and therein lies an interesting question, which is, so why release the code as open source?
Well, because why not? Right? I mean, that's what we're trying to get people at Microsoft to think about, is why not?
Yeah, what happens when we release source? So you have no plan. You're not actually thinking this is going to change X. You're saying, let's just throw it out there and see what happens.
I mean, it's not like, release the source and then kind of mentally, change, I don't know, what's the word, hypnotize the community into doing X. No, there's no like master plan behind what folks will do with it. The point is that there's no reason for us not to release the source. If it's useful and it makes people happy and they can do something with it, I mean, why it's like, well, this is kind of a silly analogy, but like I released that, you see my tweet sandwich thing I released?
Haven't seen it.
Okay, so I go to Quiznos for lunch occasionally.
Right.
And the guy at Quiznos is a former tech CEO type. And he opened the Quiznos as a Quiznos, by the way, for those of you who are not from the U.S., is a sandwich place. You go in and you get a toasted submarine sandwich. So it's a franchise, and this tech vice president, CEO type, bought it as his retirement. And he's a geek. And he said, hey, it's really cool. I'm on Twitter. You're on Twitter. You should make it so we can tweet the order. And then I wrote a program in a couple of hours that would called Tweet Sandwich that would look at his Twitter account for replies. And if anybody put in the word order, it would automatically kick it out of his printer. So then the kids that work at his sandwich shop just go to the printer and they get the orders. And it's called Tweet Sandwich.
And so now you order your sandwich via Twitter. I mean, probably from your phone, as you're on your way there.
As I'm on the way there, if I'm at a stoplight, you go, blah, 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 order, my usuals, be there in a minute. And the sandwich is waiting. And it's beautiful. Now, it could have been done over email. It could have been done over pager. It could have been done over 1,000 different things. It could have been a straight web service. But the fact that Twitter as message bus is interesting.
Right.
Okay, so what does this have to do with MVC? Well, it's one thing to make something like that and throw it up on your blog and say, look at this, it's cool. Here's some screenshots. But it's another to say, and here's all the source, have fun. That seems very significant to me. Do what you want. So I just literally, as we're talking here, a guy tweets that he just made a Twitter to Growl bridge. Growl is an open source notification system. It's the one that most people on Macs use, where if you want like balloon help or what's often called toast to pop up and notify you, toast comes up down there by the clock.
Right.
So he wrote a Twitter to Growl bridge, so that things that go through Twitter then pop up through Growl. And he did this using Tweet Sandwich as his starting point.
Nice template.
Fantastic. Yeah. And and now am I going to say now, yes, master plan. This was the goal, release Tweet Sandwich so I could make a Growl bridge. No, that's the whole point. Release it. Have fun. Do something wonderful. Hi, it's Scott here from Another Place and Time. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I apologize for interrupting it, but I wanted to let you know that assembling a podcast like this every week isn't free. Certainly the bandwidth bill crushes us every month, so I want to let you know that this show is sponsored by Telerik. They make the show possible, and they make some pretty cool products as well. For example, if you're trying to build a Web 2.0 Ajax-y application, trying to use the Web 1.0 components, it's kind of difficult. You got to get the next-gen stuff if you want to build the next-gen websites, and that's exactly what the folks at Telerik have got in their new upcoming product, which is codenamed Rad Controls Prometheus. It's a big pack of web controls built entirely on top of the Microsoft ASP.NET Ajax stuff that you already understand. It's going to give you a lot of performance and interactivity on your next project. They mirror the ASP.NET Ajax API, so the development's really straightforward. Client scripts are shared. Loading time is pretty fast. You set a couple of properties. You can even bind to web services for a really efficient operation. The new RAD editor for ASP.NET Ajax loads up to 4 times faster than before. And the RAD grid will do thousands of records in milliseconds. But of course, it's better to try these things for yourself, so you can visit telerik.com/ASP.NET Ajax and download a trial. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll get right back to the show.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of, we're talking about MVC. We're talking about the, fairly low-level chunk of code. Mm-hmm. What's it written in? MVC. C#, right?
Yeah.
So, this is not lightweight, easy things. I'm just trying to think what people might build with it. I could see your Tweet Sandwich being open source immediately. First thing that jumps in my mind is Growl.
Sure.
But when I think of MVC out in the wild, what are people going to do with that code?
Who are we to say, right?
I guess that's true.
I hear what you're saying, but to not, you're basically saying to not release it because I can't think of anything someone could build. Let's say someone didn't like the controller action invoker. They just didn't like the way that actions were being invoked, and they wanted to completely change it. And they wanted to change it in such a way that the existing extensibility points were not appropriate. There's like 13 or 14 points of extensibility. They didn't like it, or we marked something sealed or internal and we shouldn't have, or whatever, and they don't want to wait.
They could just build it themselves.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get what you mean. It's interesting. And like I said, it is a template they could work from to build some alternatives. Let's think of some other patterns they could implement instead. Yeah,
I don't know. You're actually kind of asking me to think about what they could build with it. I don't know. Maybe nothing. But I want Microsoft to do a kind of flip things from, guilty until proven innocent to innocent until proven guilty, and release stuff open source unless there's an incredibly compelling reason not to.
Well, and then therein lies the question: what source should be open and what source shouldn't? I mean, it made sense.
And I don't know, right?
Right.
I mean, this is the thing, because kind of the open source hardcore people sometimes will say, well, everything, right?
Right.
But then you have to make some money, right? So then people say, oh, well, you make money off of services. The source is free. But I think if you build something with let's say that you use Log4net, right?
Yep.
As your logging tool, but you make an application that cures cancer with software or something. I don't know, maybe you want to patent that, but that has nothing to do with Log4net. So should you release your top, the top part of your application just because the bottom part was open source?
Yeah.
You mean build it with take all these atoms, ATOM, and build molecules and then put those out there. But, I wonder if the open source, do you think open source should be open source applications or open source, frameworks and open source, building blocks?
Well, I think the real reason that you make frameworks open source is to compensate for deficiencies in the framework, where apps become templates to other ideas.
Okay.
Thinking of the two different approaches on there. I mean, the one that jumps out to me immediately is, should we open source Windows? What would happen that would be good or bad from open sourcing Windows?
Windows itself?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'd be almost impossible to build it because it's so big.
Yes.
Someone could make evil Windows.
They certainly could.
That those like keyloggers built in at the low level or something like that. They could customize stuff they couldn't before. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could, when they open source Linux, there was a lot of chaos and a lot of distros, and then that kind of relaxed a little bit, and then people started coming out with better distros, and then Ubuntu happened, and then it's kind of calmed down. There's a lot fewer distros now, and they're a lot higher quality. So I suppose if you open source Windows, there'd be absolute chaos for a while, and then there'd be a couple of really good versions that everyone would just know about.
Yeah, it's just that Windows is a whole bunch bigger than Linux, so it might be hard to even get there.
Do you think so? I don't know that to be true, is it?
Yeah, I don't know the exact details on it. I guess the impression of it is that...
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good
question.
It's a lot more lines of code. Bigger? I think one of the things about Windows that is that there's probably a lot of things in Windows that are workarounds for compatibility reasons, I think that's probably true with all operating systems, maybe less so on the Mac. The idea that Windows has to support anything, doing anything at any time.
Yes, and all the old apps.
All combinations.
Yeah, all of those different things, and the hardware diversity, Windows has a tough job.
Well, I think this is on Vista. If I right click, right now I'm in Windows 7. If I right click on properties and go compatibility, there's all of this compatibility mode stuff.
Yep.
There's stuff like, remember back it was at XP, you would get these things on Windows Update that were the April 2000 and whatever compatibility mode thing, and then you'd hit the help button and go up to the support.microsoft.com and would say, here's a patch for Arthur's teacher trouble for Windows, it makes it work better. Those weren't patches for Arthur's teacher trouble itself, they were patches for Windows.
Yeah.
To make sure that people didn't think, this is the thing, right? If something doesn't run on Windows, people think poorly of Windows. They don't think poorly of the thing.
Yeah, which is funny, but yes, that's exactly.
Yeah, but so suddenly Arthur's teacher trouble stops working. We hate Windows. We don't hate Arthur's teacher trouble and Broderbund. So then a patch comes out. So there's a whole application compatibility thing underneath Windows. I should probably try to find those guys and do a show with them. Because they're always testing stuff to make sure it still works.
Absolutely. And there are guys who are specialists. We did some on Run As Radio, actually, talked to one of the guys who gets brought into companies like Broderbund to help them with their compatibility challenges.
Really?
Yeah.
Which episode was that? How long ago was that? That's a good idea.
It was a while ago, but it was just an interesting, very much an IT discussion of you're trying to upgrade your OSs, and how do you deal with old school apps that you can't retire? What do you got to do?
There's a lot of, I'm surprised that stuff still works. Just different DOS applications that I'm still able to run.
Yes. It's amazing as much works as it is. On Run As, it was a guy named Chris Jackson, Show 93. And he's one of the specialists at Microsoft that deals with, they call it the Application Experience SWAT team. And they deal with making apps run, old Windows apps run on new versions of Windows.
You know, that's a really good point, because people don't appreciate being able to right-click on something and say, lie to this program. You're really running on Windows 95.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You know, and that's just a patch for the get version call. You know, there's an API call at the low level that says get version. So they put in some kind of a patch that says when this thing calls get version, lie to it.
Yeah, Chris called them shims.
Shims? Is that the word? That's fantastic.
But they also, shim the registry. So even though it said go right to the local computer, redirect it over to the special area in user. And when he tries to write to the System32 directory, there's a shim here that pushes it over to the application folder for the user. That sort of stuff.
That's hot.
All the things we were supposed to do as developers years ago when they said stop writing to Sys32, those sorts of things.
Right.
Now they've actually overcome them with these shims.
They've got disk path virtualization.
Yeah.
I've seen that before, where this application just flat out writes to Winder/System32.
Yep.
Which of course is not allowed anymore.
Nope.
So it ends up in app data somewhere in a virtualized folder. So basically the write succeeds and the application never knows, because he'll also read from there.
Yep.
And things are okay. Which is funny, because they spent all this time saying behave, and they still have to pay the price.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Remember code access security? Whatever happened to that? It just sort of went away.
That's a good question.
We just kind of gave up on it, right? These were all these things that Microsoft told us to do in an effort to try and make our machines more reliable, really. And I guess at some point you got to realize people just weren't using it, and they stopped putting energy into it.
I don't know. I think that it would be nice to be like a Mac, because Macs can say, and I mean Macs, I mean Apple can say, screw it, we're going to break this. Yeah. And people are just going to have to get over it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the impression. I mean, I've got three Macs in the house. 2 I use all the time. And, stuff just breaks. But inevitably you can go up to that small vendor and find the version that fixes it. They seem to be willing to break stuff for the purpose of moving forward, while Microsoft seems to be less willing to break stuff.
Well, and you can argue that fundamentally the whole UAC crisis in Vista was Microsoft finally trying to break stuff. Right,
and people freaked out because somebody moved my cheese.
That's it. They messed with the cheese, and it was just a disaster for them. Yeah. It's almost like a double standard. I don't know how Microsoft could do that better.
Almost like a double standard?
Yeah.
Just a little bit like a double standard.
Just something vaguely. You may see this vaguely as something resembling a double standard.
Well, but the argument I always get when I complain about these things at work is that, well, Microsoft is so big and so many people are using Windows that, if you break it, some 3-man construction company that uses, upgrades from Windows 95 to Vista is going to be mad when their little construction company program breaks. And no one cares enough to update that program, so they'll be screwed.
And I think another side of this is the idea that Microsoft tries to resist losing customers that way, that people just don't upgrade. I think there's still a bunch of people running around with old Macs because they can't get their old software to run on new Macs.
That's true. Because I guess, what is it? I used to have a bunch of stuff running in, was it like OS 9 compatibility mode? And then that stopped working recently. And but some people complained, but not enough that anyone cared, right?
Not enough. Well, and they also think that when you're Apple and a small portion of the market, you really can't go to the Federal Trade Commission and say, this is destructive to business. There's that. Microsoft's got the same fear that IBM had. This whole thing of when you are the biggest, there's always that stress from at the federal level that will actually, you're going to end up in front of Congress because you didn't support some kind of compatibility layer.
Yeah. Man, running a company's hard.
Well, especially a company that's that big.
It'd be nice to be a boutique and avoid talking to Congress.
But at the same time, of course, what's the boutique trying to be but the big guy?
Yeah, valid point. I just always thought it would be nice to run a boutique and just not get big. Ever.
Yeah, I think
like set that as a goal, as a company goal. We will never go public. We will stay small and be a boutique.
Yeah, as soon as I break 100 people, I'll lay people off so I'm back down to 100 again.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
101st guy, just run it as a queue.
Yeah, sorry.
And yeah, that guy has to leave now.
Yeah. We want to hire somebody new, we have to find somebody to fire.
I used to work for a company like that had 35 or so people, and the founders were 50-50. It wasn't 49-51, but it was two guys, and we promise we'll run this place as a boutique, and it'll be small, and we'll all get to pay our mortgages, and everything will be wonderful. And then the 90s happened, and it became absolute chaos as we tried to go public, and the whole thing fell apart.
Yeah, I think the greed takes over. There comes a point. I want more.
Why? As soon as I have enough money, you're never going to hear from me again.
Well, I hope you'll send a Christmas card.
Well, I may text you occasionally, but effectively, you'll never hear from me again. It'll be wish you weren't here, postcards and things like that.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm here. Too bad you're not.
Exactly. See ya. No, I'm very much looking forward to becoming like a high school teacher or something.
I read a book recently on vacation, actually. I took a week, took the girls down to Mexico, sat on a beach and read nonfiction for a week.
Yeah.
And not technology fiction, not technology nonfiction. I read
really?
Economics books, history books, that sort of thing. And one of the books
you just unplugged.
Yeah. No laptop, nothing.
Magical.
One of the books I read was a book called Small is Beautiful, Economics as if People Mattered.
Economics as if people mattered.
That's right. And the concept is Buddhist economics. The economics of sufficiency.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. This whole Great Depression 2.0 thing has got me wondering if capitalism as a concept is kind of overrated. And I don't mean that in the, and now let's all be socialists. I mean in the, we can't grow at 5% a quarter forever.
Absolutely. You certainly can't. And the thing is, you have to sully, and I put that in quotes, sully, capitalism with regulation.
Sully meaning screw it up.
Yeah, well, restrict it, limit it in ways, right?
Yeah.
You've got to put regulations in place so that it's not actually this true laissez-faire capitalism, because people do matter.
Someone might say that means perverting capitalism, screwing it up.
Absolutely. And I'm sure I'll get a few emails from folks saying, I can tell you've been up in Canada too long. You definitely sound like a socialist.
Yeah. Well, then you get into the whole distributing the wealth thing and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and there are degrees. I mean, at the same time, people do need to be compensated for their efforts, and they do need to have an opportunity to succeed.
Yeah.
And to do better than their parents. Those are interesting fundamental motivators. But there is still this idea of sufficiency.
Yeah. Well, and you know how people say absolute power corrupts absolutely. They don't seem to say power corrupts. Period.
Right. It's that whole absolute thing.
I mean, one time I said to someone that, as soon as I'm done making my millions, then you'll never hear from me again. This was actually my boss that said this at the time. And he says, well, I'll probably hear from you always, because with that kind of an attitude, you're never going to make $1 million.
Nice.
People who have that attitude don't make piles of money. Because I'm always asking myself, why didn't so-and-so, whoever the latest guy who, like the Twitter guys, right? They sold their stuff to they made Blogger, Evan Williams.
Right.
23 years old, and he made $1 gajillion when he sold Blogger to Google. And here he is doing the same thing again. It's not like he doesn't have enough money to hang out. Why didn't he hang out? Why isn't he teaching high school? Because the personality type to make the money in the first place can't stop.
No, I'm with you. I have friends like that who, made a huge pile of money, really doesn't need to work, always has a few projects, and they go, but it just isn't creative enough. If I had $1 billion, I think all I'd do all day is practical jokes. While you were at work, I'd have your car converted to right-hand drive. Because I think that's hilarious. You get in the car and the steering wheel's on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, I got 100 of these. We can just
clearly the best thing that a millionaire could be doing with his time.
Absolutely, right? Or I'm going to demolish the stairs in the front of your house and have them remade with one extra stair.
I wonder if life really becomes so boring after the first million.
Nah, I don't know. $1 million is not much money anymore.
Well, let's take, I don't know. What's a lot of money? $4 million is a lot of money. A lot of money means you can live in a nice house and hang out and watch TV all day forever.
Well, the idea that even if I don't get up today, I still made more money than I spent today.
There you go. Yes, exactly.
Right?
When your burn rate matches your passive income rate, that's
right.
a lot of money.
That's the basic concept of wealth.
Right. Well, what is it they always say about Chris Rock was talking about the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Right.
He said that Shaquille O'Neal is rich, but the man who signs Shaquille O'Neal's check is wealthy.
Yeah, I think
it's funny because it's true.
It's absolutely true.
So yeah, building wealth in that passive income kind of a sense. But those people take risks that I'm not willing to take, right? Like my wife was like, we need to buy another house, rent it out. And I'm thinking, how can you buy a house now? This is the worst possible time to buy a house. Oh my goodness. Well, but see, the people who are going to make a lot of money are the ones that are going to buy houses right now. Maybe.
They're taking a risk.
Yeah. Or they'll all be homeless soon. I don't know.
Yeah. All of these things are possible.
This is true. This is a show about nothing. This is the Seinfeld of Hansel Minutes.
And Seinfeld of Hansel Minutes.
Do you think this is the show in which we, in fact, wasted people's time?
I don't know. I hope people read Small is Beautiful. I really enjoyed the book.
Really?
Just as an interesting way of thinking about there is other ways to operate an economy.
Let's do this. Let's end the show on book recommendations.
All right. Any others?
Well, not necessarily in the Buddhist economics category, but Old Man's War by John Scalzi, Scalzi, and anything John Scalzi writes is fantastic.
Is all good?
All good. Old Man's War is wonderful. It's kind of a Heinlein kind of a Starship Troopers kind of a thing.
Okay.
Very, very good. The Time Traveler's Wife is a book that I recommend to everyone because it's just amazing. Have you heard about this book?
No.
I won't give the whole thing away, but the general idea is it starts out, and each chapter basically says, I forget their names. It's just say Frank and Anne. I don't know what the people's names are. It's like Frank is 26, Anne is 8. And then the next chapter, it's like Frank is 35, Anne is 34. And it's about their relationship as he jumps through time and she runs through time normally.
Wow.
So it's like a 60-year love story, except he experiences it from one timeline because he has temporal displacement syndrome and hops around his own timeline, and she doesn't, and how they maintain a relationship.
Funny.
The Time Traveler's Wife.
That's interesting.
Oh, it's fantastic. And it's less about time travel and more about love.
Maintaining an interesting relationship.
Yeah.
Another book I read in my week off was The Case for Democracy by a guy named Nathan Sharansky.
Okay.
He was a dissident in Russia who was part of the end of the Soviet Union and just has a very interesting way of looking at how you create new democracies.
From the point of view of someone who did not live in a democracy.
Right, and values it very greatly now that he does, and is very conscious of what it took to cause the Soviet Union to collapse.
Very interesting.
Absolutely.
All right. I think, what else am I reading right now? Oh, I've got a bunch of stuff. It's time to do a reading list post because, man, I'm just devouring books. I got the Kindle. Do you have the Kindle?
I do not have a Kindle. I'm in Canada, and it's hard to use it.
Oh, it is hard to use it in Canada. Sorry for you in Canada. Yeah, loving the Kindle. I'm reading so much more than I was before. It's really obnoxious. And I was reading a lot before.
But just because you got it with you all the time, and it's got a pile of books in it.
It does. Well, and I'm also getting lots of free books. I've been reading a lot of this Cory Doctorow, this science fiction writer that gives his stuff away.
Yeah.
He's got a really interesting book I'm halfway through right now called Little Brother. It's like Big Brother, but it's Little Brother, and it's about a 17-year-old after a 9/11 style attack in San Francisco and how he deals with that as a young techie, and how you shouldn't trust anyone over 25. So it's kind of the 60s all over again, but in 2000 and whatever.
He's a Canadian, you know.
Cory Doctorow's a Canadian?
Absolutely.
I did not know that. Well, that explains a lot of the book then.
There you go.
Interesting. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Richard Campbell, for coming on and wasting everyone's time. I appreciate it very, very much.
I'm here to serve, sir.
All right. And we shall have a Hansel Minutia another time. This has been another fantastic episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.